Okay, we're doing a short recording right now on a Friday afternoon at the shop because we've already recorded this week's podcast. And when things come up that I want to talk about and I don't write them down on my notebook, I forget about them. But since it just happened and Gina and I are right here at the shop, we can talk about it now. We just got in a UPS delivery from our regular UPS driver, which that in itself is a misnomer because we've got one that we like, and it was that guy, and other people that fill in at different times. And the one we like gives us our books earlier in the day. And this is it 1 o'clock?
It's after 1. It's 1:11.
So that's a little better. Like 11 o'clock would be great. And he sometimes does 11 o'clock, but it's a large shipment. It's a large, every single box. Do you want to count the boxes? Every single box is from Penguin Random House, and most of it is next week's books. Next week's books that'll be on sale Wednesday.
12 boxes.
13. I had a flat. I had a flat as well with a single or two issues of Hellfire Gala. And so this is the way that Penguin Random House now ships the books. And you do a lot of unpacking. And it's so one of these rectangle boxes. What is inside of one of those? Is it two?
It's usually like 2 separate stacks.
Yeah. Here,
why don't you for next week?
Well, you can cut into one and describe how it is there, because he said something pretty wonderfully poignant that I will get to. So there's another paper on top. It's just a single box?
It's a single box, but there'll be 2
Oh, okay. So it's
books inside.
Gotcha. So Diamond sends boxes like that have 2 boxes inside, 2 double stacks. So this is it's basically like an interior Diamond box. Okay, yeah. 2 stacks. So it's a larger outer box, and it's a double-walled corrugated cardboard box, and then a single-wall inner box. And it's, what is it surrounded by? Paper. I do like their paper. It seems like nobody else uses this paper. It's all scrunched, but it has perforations and a fold, and it's like the paper is formed like an X. Mm-hmm. Like it's not flat. You can never get it flat. It's meant to cushion. So anyway, as he's unloading the boxes, he's looking at the boxes, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, not direct quoting, he said, the people that send your books are, how did he phrase it? Are really counting on UPS to be delicate with these boxes, and that is not the case. He's like, I'm just a driver. I just drive and unload a truck, but I see how these are handled in the warehouses and how they get into the trucks. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the way these boxes are, they're made to protect your books. I'm going to guess you get a lot of damages. And that's coming from someone from UPS. So I thought that was kind of telling. He's like, yeah, they're really putting a lot of faith in UPS in handling these books. That's what he said, faith. They're putting a lot of faith in UPS to handle these books right. So, yeah, I guess maybe if I remember, we'll check back in at the end of this check-in process and see what the damages are like. What was it, 13 boxes?
13, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Yay! Have
Yay.
fun.
Thank you.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. I still approve, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep bringing comics, keep your local store strong. It gets hard, then it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business
podcast, the lowest of all entertainment,
with
Patrick Brower, Super Sour,
and W. Dal Bush.
Well, to recap the way that order was checked in, there were a higher number of damages than normal, but here's the catch, not because of UPS, because of the way they were packed by the PRH warehouse employees.
That's great.
All of the Hellfire Gala damages, they were packing damages. They weren't...
Nice.
So this is for Dal's benefit because he wasn't privy to the conversation Gina and I had with our UPS driver.
No.
But the UPS driver came around 1:30, and it was a larger number of boxes for a Friday. Mm-hmm. But he had specifically asked us if the... And this was a week ago for me, just about, so I don't remember exactly. And even though it was literally just mere seconds ago for people listening, he had asked me if we get a ton of damages because he looks at these boxes and sees how thin they are. And he says that whoever is packing them is not doing you any favors because they're assuming UPS is going to take care of the packages, and they're not.
Nope.
He said, I'm a driver. I empty a truck. I don't load the trucks. I empty the trucks. I drive the trucks. I empty the trucks. But I've seen the way these packages are treated in the warehouses, and they are thrown all over the place.
Absolutely.
So if they are expecting any level of care taken with these boxes, you're not going to get it.
No.
But the irony of that situation is all of our damages were caused by the way they're packed. You know how like one rolls up the side?
Right.
Things like that. And it was a much larger number. And he called it out because he thought they looked like they were going to be bad that week. And they were, but not because of UPS.
No.
And we did talk with him about the strike, which we've done before as well.
Yeah.
I know a lot of stores, comic stores around the country, and other stores like Nakama Toys has had the same UPS driver for 9 years. We don't have that.
No, ours switches out at least
Pretty
once
regularly.
a year. At least once a year. And like over the holidays, there's like 2 regular guys.
But even now, like we have a main guy, but there's other people that fill in on occasion.
Sure.
And we frequently on Fridays get the fill-in. Because our regular guy likes to come, he knows that we open at 11.
And that's the best. Like when you have a regular guy and they want to get the truck emptied out. So like when they know that you get a ton of boxes on a certain day and you open at, say, 11, they want to get there between 11 and noon because they want to get that stuff off the truck as fast as they can.
Yeah. And it's not an insignificant amount of boxes in the grand scheme of their truck. But sometimes when there's a fill-in guy, they get there way too early, leave a sticker that says, we tried.
Yeah. Maybe they come back by the end of the day, sometimes not.
Or they come back 15 minutes before he closes.
Right.
So it was the regular guy, and we were asking about the strike, and he basically broke the strike down. First of all, he said, and I know all this is a moot point because they reached a settlement.
They did. Strike's over.
It's not a problem.
The strike was averted. It never happened.
It's funny how that they can work together for that. Anyway, I wasn't going to get into
some strikes can be averted or ended in a way that makes both parties happy.
So the strike, the thing with the strike was, it was just the part-timers. He said that the drivers are all compensated fairly, and like every other position, it's just the temp workers who were striking and were looking for better wages.
Okay.
So it's a weird breakdown of how, the structure is within. And he was very confident it was going to get resolved, and it was just, and I'm not saying he didn't seem to think that it was merited, but that may have been the indication I got without it being said, and I could be completely misreading him. But it was interesting to have his take on it and how the looming then UPS strike was a very big deal within the comics industry.
Yeah.
But for the first time, everybody was proactive about it. Right. Publishers were shipping out their books, or distributors were shipping out their product in as far advance as they could. So many distributors were like, if you want to stock up on stuff, do it now.
Yes.
Like if you want to order want things shipped out.
That I think was a little bit more trying to take advantage of like the fear people had of things not being available, not being able to get stuff. So it was like, hey, if you do need any supplies, now's the time to get them. And it's like, I get it. It's probably a good practice for certain stores.
Sure.
But it also felt a little predatory.
I mean, it didn't bother me in the slightest because if we needed anything from, say, Southern Hobby, we would go pick it up.
Yeah.
They're not in danger of going out of business or not having that. They just can't ship things.
Right.
I mean, that may have hurt their bottom line, but it was crisis averted. But also, as I told the UPS driver, like I wasn't that worried about the strike because if the strike happened, everybody is fucked.
Oh yeah.
It's not just us. It's not a Challenger's problem. It's an industry problem.
Well, it's a massive global economy problem.
Yeah.
I mean, things need to get shipped and delivered, and the UPS drivers and their union knew that they had most of the power, which is why I feel like a lot of the prep stuff that was being done by manufacturers and by distributors was with the idea of like, if there's a strike, it's probably going to be for like just a few days.
Yeah.
So if we can get that week's stuff out ahead and they go on strike for 4 or 5 days, you won't notice any interruption or disruption to your service. Not that I am in labor organization or
have you stepped down?
High finance. I didn't think the strike was probably going to happen because it seemed, just from looking at it, like this is way more detrimental to the brass at UPS and like the corporate structure than it would be to the striking workers. So it seemed like a thing that at the latest there was going to be like a July 31st, they made a deal, this isn't going to happen.
Well,
thing.
I did think it was rude of one of the UPS executives to say that their plan was to wait until October until all the drivers and the temps had run out of money and they wouldn't be able to afford their studio apartments and stuff anymore. Just tacky.
Heartless.
Not realizing that all those people have multiple jobs anyway.
Have had to have multiple jobs because they get paid so little. Therefore, they are fine to strike from this one industry.
I do have personal friends who are affected by these entertainment industry strikes, and I do want to talk to them more in detail on it from different parts of the industry. But it doesn't necessarily work its way into a comics industry business podcast, unless it just means more Hollywood people are working on comics, which as of yet nothing's been announced, but that's not a...
Yeah, who knows?
Comics aren't necessarily looking for more product coming out, as evidenced from last week's Contest of Challengers episode where we talked about all the Marvel and DC books.
Yes.
My goodness. There's too many to even go on about. Who cares? So yeah, brief cameo from Gina Challenger.
Thanks, Gina.
Friday's Gina. And so uncomfortable is Gina with talking that even when it was just her and I having a normal conversation, once the phone is out, Gina gets real quiet.
Wow.
Like, you don't have to worry. This is just...
Nobody listens to this, Gina. Don't worry about
It's
it.
fine. It's fine. Another thing that, as I've been working on in the background, I don't know why I said another thing, because I wasn't really working on a UPS strike. That had nothing to do with me.
No,
I wasn't working to cause it, and I wasn't working to fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say I'm part of the problem because I wasn't part of the solution, but I'm still
think it's
ordering
your
as much
problem to
stuff.
solve.
Yeah, it wasn't. But what is our problem to solve is the lighting in the store.
Yes.
Now, this story goes back, well, forever. 15 and a half years ago, when the building was being built and our space was being
Finished.
created, we got to have input on how things went, i.e., let's build a wall here and wall this part off and give us a tiny back room.
Yeah.
We got to decide where the light fixtures were going to go. We didn't get to decide what the light fixtures were,
Right.
but we got to decide
Do
where
they
and
run
how they were hung.
Horizontal or vertical, that
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
And,
And
you
how
know,
many of them are there?
In theory, we got to talk about light switches, but not outlets, and definitely not the stupid electronic front door lock that we long since disconnected.
Uh-huh.
But like I said, we weren't involved in the conversation as to what the lights would be. However, if we had been, we most likely, and I would say with 94% certainty, would have chosen the style of lights we have.
Okay.
Maybe not the exact model, but we would have selected 4-foot fluorescent tube bulbs.
Okay.
Do you agree or disagree?
I don't know enough about lighting to say otherwise. It's all
Right.
I've ever had. So,
Which is
yeah,
why we
sure.
would have picked it, because as you just said, that's all we've ever had.
Yeah.
However, over the years, fluorescent technology has been outdated,
Rendered
replaced.
obsolete by
And,
LED fixtures.
Yeah, LED is kind of the way to go. And we even had an electrician who's the brother of a club member who had offered to give us a quote on redoing all the lights. But that just never wound up working out. I don't even know why it didn't, to be honest. But anyway, the way fluorescent lights are worked is that there is what they call a ballast that is part of every 4-foot fixture. And the power comes into the ballast, and the ballast runs out to what they call tombstones that the lights plug into. And one ballast, in our case, handles 2 lights. Each light has 2 tombstones, so there's 4 tombstones per light per ballast, right? Now, the tombstones have two different options, and the lights have different options. Like the tombstones are two different options. They can either be, I forget the exact words. I'm going to say open or closed.
Okay.
So either the tombstones are connected to each other, or they're not.
Okay.
And that tells you how the power runs through the light. If it's powered from one end or if it's powered from both ends.
Okay.
But you have to have a ballast to power the light. And if you're ever in a store, our store, any other store that has fluorescent lighting, and you see a bulb is out, most of the time the bulb is fine, the ballast is out. And part of the power running from that ballast is bad because ballasts burn out. They don't do anything, they just stop working. And if you don't know what a ballast looks like, if you go to our Instagram or our Facebook pages from last week, you'll see a photo of a ballast that I had removed. And in fact, you would have seen it today, Dal, because it was in my hand as we went to that creepy, inaccessible hardware store on 47th Street today.
Yes.
That was
a fun detour.
locked in the middle of the day with their store hours saying that they were open.
Right.
And then when I called, just got an answering machine message, yet there was a whole row of lawnmowers parked outside.
Yeah, a lot of lawnmowers and snowblowers. Very weird.
But what you saw there was the ballast stripped of all its wires except for an inch on each end. And what I learned from electricians is that fluorescent lighting is so outdated of a technology that by the end of 2024, no one is going to be manufacturing those bulbs anymore. It's just a dead thing.
Right.
Fluorescent bulbs are pretty cheap, but they also burn out kind of quickly as well. The problem with nobody manufacturing fluorescent bulbs is no one's already making ballasts. And there are hundreds, probably thousands of different ballasts, shapes and sizes and configurations. Every light has a different kind of ballast. And it's very frustrating to try to find a very specific ballast that you need to replace.
Right.
It has always been difficult, so difficult that it has always been a hire an electrician, they can go find it for you
Yes.
kind of situation. And a couple of times in the past, we've hired electricians to do the very same thing. Now, rewiring a 4-foot fluorescent light, and like taking the ballast out and putting a new one in, it's not hard. It's a thing that I'm comfortable doing myself. The annoying part is the height.
Right.
It's all the way up on our very tall ceilings, but fine. And the way ballasts are wired in is they're already capped together anyway, so you're not even like cutting and stripping. You are, but you're not. So during the pandemic, we needed an electrician to come out and take care of it, and he did, and it was fine, and it was easy, and he was quick and whatever. However, we've not been able to get a hold of that guy this year, so it's like, all right, we got to find somebody else.
Right.
Looking on the Bucktown Community Facebook group, there have been many posts over the years where people looking for an electrician and recommendations. One particular name kept coming up with really good reviews from everybody. So I'm like, all right, I'll try that guy. So I called. It's a single one-person operation. One guy who works on everything by himself. And I told him what we're looking for. He then asked me to send him pictures of the lights. So I took photos of the lights, the ones that were burned out, sent them in. Unfortunately, he then chose to come by the store on his own without telling me he was coming. So he showed up on a day I was not there.
Great.
So I could not talk to him about the lights, and no one knew he was coming.
Right.
So no one was ready for him. But he looked at the lights and figured out what we needed. And then he called me back, and he's like, all right, I'm pretty sure I know what I need, what kind of ballasts. And we need at this point like 7 ballasts replaced.
Okay.
And he's like, I actually have a stock of ballasts, but I don't have all of them. But he asked for money up front to buy the ballasts. Fine. I didn't give it a second thought because of the very, very positive reviews he's gotten from the Bucktown community.
Sure.
And obviously everyone listening knows where this goes. Long story short, that dude took the money and ghosted us. Haven't heard from him since, haven't been able to get a hold of him. And now that this has happened, and I Like, he's completely ignoring any attempt at communication.
Right.
So now I started going online. First, I went on to the Bucktown Community Organization Facebook page to be like, hey, has anybody heard from Andy? Is he okay? Because I don't want to be like...
He robbed us because you don't know what happened.
Well, also because these posts have to be approved, and I want it to be kicked back
Sure.
because of the language I use. But once, and it took him a couple days, once it was approved, I started getting a flood of, oh yeah, he did that to me as well.
Thanks for posting about it.
And like somebody posted, like, here's his Better Business Bureau page where he's got 1 star.
Ugh.
Like, where were all of these reviews when I was looking him up?
Right.
And there were a handful of, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, he never did it. He did great work for me. But all of the really positive reviews were pre-pandemic.
Sure.
And all of this behavior has been post-pandemic.
Great.
Now, it wasn't a ton of money.
Right.
It was $250 for supplies. He's gotten a lot of other people for a lot more.
Sure.
However, and for everyone who's like, well, take him to the small claims court and blah, blah, blah. We don't have a contract.
No.
Because he was recommended so highly, and it was just such a very casual... Like, he did come into the store to check out the job and everything, so it's like, all right, he knows what he's up for, he knows what he's doing. We did have one small argument on the phone where he was telling me that they use different bulbs than I do. I'm like, no, they're TAs. He's like, no, they're T12s. I go, no, they're TAs. He's like, no, they're T12s. I'm like, look, man, I buy these bulbs and replace them all the time. I have a whole box in the back room. I will send you a photo. These are T8s. But I'm like, I don't want to argue this.
No.
Like, I'm not asking for bulbs. And he was trying to upsell me on bulbs. Like, hey, because, all your bulbs are kind of different shades of white. And he's not wrong.
Right.
Anyway, this dude is a complete dick, and he fucked us over.
Uh-huh.
In the meantime, I started studying up on how to rewire a light switch, not a light switch, a light fixture to make it LED compatible, because you can bypass the ballast and just put in LED bulbs, and you're done.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty easy process. And I watched a bunch of tutorials. Now, that thing I told you before about the tombstones, which are the end caps that the lights plug into, that's very important, because you need to know what kind of tombstones you have to know what kind of bulbs to buy.
Sure.
Single end power, double end power. But once you know that, it's a breeze. And every tutorial I watched seemed very, very simple. So I took a guess as to what kind of tombstones we had, and I went to Home Depot, and I bought... They only had one style of LED bulb, so I'm like, all right, I guess we're going with single end power. And then a Saturday, a month ago, I had Sam stay after, and on a Saturday, I said that. So I get out the ladder and go up, and our units are 4-foot fixtures that have 2 bulbs each, but there's 4 of them connected in a line. So it's one power source that runs through 4 different fixtures, or 2 power sources that run through 2. Got it?
Got it.
Each 8-foot stretch of 2 fixtures has 3 metal covers that cover the guts and the wires. So you know where the bulbs go in. Take the bulbs out, and there's flat metal that runs across. Well, you have to pop those pieces down to get to the wiring.
Got it.
And those are in 3 pieces. It's like a 2-foot piece on each end and a 4-foot piece in the middle.
Okay.
Now, the 2 end pieces go on the outside of the tombstones. But the middle piece, the tombstones have to go through. So there's 4 tombstones that cut through the middle of this 4-foot piece. So it's a giant pain in the ass to navigate.
From the underneath.
Unhooking, getting it down, and you have to take all 4 bulbs down at one time to be able to do this.
Right.
Kind of. The ballasts are accessible through the small 2-foot panel, but all the wiring is all the way through.
Right.
So it was literally before I started this that I realized every single tutorial that I've watched shows you how to rewire one 4-foot unit. None of them show you how to connect the units from one power source all the way down. And especially if you have bulbs that are powered at one end, nothing comes out the other end to run to the
Yeah.
other fixtures. So I knew that going in. So I'm like, I'm just going to go up there and take a look and see what it is. So that night was just exploratory. I was able to take photos of the ballasts, so I knew exactly what we needed. It was filthy up there, as you can imagine.
I can imagine.
And the hardest part of the whole situation is getting that 4-foot metal covering back on with the 4 tombstones through it and
Sure.
hooking it on both sides because wires keep wanting to pop out.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Then I went searching for ballasts online. Well, as I pointed out before, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ballasts. And finding the exact ballasts we need that they don't make anymore is difficult.
Yes.
I found 2 on eBay, one set of 2 somebody was selling that said they just came out of brand new lights and they were inexpensive, so I ordered them. When they showed up, one of them looked brand new, one of them looked like it had been stuck up someone's butt, and the labels had all worn off and everything,
That'll happen if you stick it up a butt.
right? So I'm like, I can't believe this one came out of a new light. So last Friday, I'm like, all right, let's rewire. So I go up, and here's the thing about our store. There are 3 light fixtures in the ceiling that we cannot turn off. There are 3 light fixtures that you can shut off every breaker in our store. Those 3 lights stay on. Like they're emergency lights or backup lights or whatever.
Something like that.
They are not on the circuits for our store.
Right.
And one of them has a bad ballast. But anyway, that's getting ahead of myself. So the first thing you do in any electric situation is what?
Turn off the power?
Turn off the power. What is the thing that I refuse to do?
Turn off the power.
Because that would turn off the power to a huge section of the store, when if you just turn off the light switch, you are in fact cutting the power to that light.
Is that right?
Yeah, because the wires come up to the switch, and when you turn it off, you're cutting off the power at the switch.
Okay.
So it doesn't go up further into the light.
Okay.
Now, if I was wrong, I would be dead.
It's true.
I am not dead, Dal.
No, Patrick, you're very much alive.
If you may think that you're being haunted, being punished, and I'm dead.
I don't.
But yeah, so anyway, turn off the light switch, fine. Get up there. The new ballasts I have a crazy amount of wire on them, which is great because, you know, they got to run everywhere.
Yeah.
So you just go up to the old ballast, cut the ends off. They're screwed into the frame. Take that down. Our ballasts are very confusing because they have a black and a white wire that go into one end, and on the other end, it has 4 sets of 2 different colored wires.
Okay.
Red, blue, green, and yellow. So 8 wires coming from the back. Most ballasts don't have that configuration. Most have like 4 in the front, 2 in the back, or something like that.
Sure.
So the black and the white wires are the power.
Okay.
That's the line comes in, and those, where they were connected to the old ballast, didn't have the screw caps. They were crimped in a plastic thing that I couldn't undo.
Sure.
So I had to cut those.
Uh-huh.
And that means stripping the wire, fine. But that means I only have X amount of extra caps to screw the new wires together.
Okay.
So I lose 2 right there. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, anytime I give you a number, you have to double it because there's a second ballast to get to.
Got it.
So then I need 4 caps, right?
Got it.
Then the wiring from the lights that are up versus the extra wires I have on the new ballast don't reach.
Uh-oh.
The reds didn't reach. And I think that's more of a fault of the way it was put up in the first place.
Okay.
However, I just had the old ballast I threw away.
Sure.
I didn't throw away. I just literally cut down and threw on the floor. So I can cut a length of each of that off and use a connect.
Sure.
But then I need 2 extra connectors.
You do.
And I am quickly running out of connectors because I had to do that to the red on the first ballast and like the green or the yellow on the second ballast.
Okay.
And also, the wiring in the ballasts is different. The wires that were in the ballast were one thick firm wire.
Okay.
The ones in the new ballasts were, like the dozens of thin wire threads.
Sure.
Anyway, I go through all that. And I'm worried now. I'm like, I'm adding an extra junction for 2 wires. So I rewire the first ballast, go down, and I'm not going to reset everything back up because just to test it.
Right.
But I flip the switch, and because there's still 2 other light fixtures connected, I hope people are following along to this. I'm really sorry. There's 2 other light fixtures connected to this set. I've turned 2 off. I've taken the lights out of 2 of them.
Right.
So flip the switch, the back 2 lights go on. Power goes through, right? Great. Love it. So go out, replace the second ballast, encounter the same problem, different color wire, have to split it, whatever. I keep dropping the caps because they're so small.
Right.
And I leave all my tools and everything on the new comic rack, but then it was moved over. The ladder was by the frame posters and the window prints for the second ballast area.
End of the bookshelves. Yeah.
So rewire the second ballast, right?
Right.
Fine. Come down, flip the switch, 2 lights go on. Great. Everything's
Perfect.
fine. So I can put everything back together is my point. So put everything back together. It takes forever to get the stupid middle piece on, like I mentioned before.
Yep.
And when I was doing this with Sam, it was after hours, so I could just be like shouting down to Tools, and she could hand tools up, or like when I would drop something, she could pick it up, because I drop stuff all the time on ladders.
Sure.
But this was Friday during the day at the store, so Gina was at the front counter, so she wasn't hovering down by the bottom of the ladder, able to like hand me tools or do whatever.
Right.
Gina was in fact working at making money for the store, not wasting it like I was.
Interesting.
So I get down and everything's put back together. The bulbs are back in. Flip the switch. The first unit, both bulbs, boom, lit. Perfect.
Great.
Love it. Second unit, only 1 bulb.
Huh.
You know what that means? The up your butt ballast was bad.
Wow. Shocker.
Who would have known? Who would have suspected?
Shocker.
Who could have possibly have guessed? So I wasted all that time for nothing. So it is brighter in the corner with the toys.
It is. It's true. I noticed.
Because both lights work. So I'm like, look, and it's funny if you like go to 411 on the store computer. Now that they're full of ads, it's all ballasts.
Nice.
So I start digging around for ballasts. I'm like, I got to be able to find these ballasts,
Someone's
right?
got to have them.
And there's so many companies that just sell ballasts.
Right.
So I had 2 different chat windows open with 2 different light seller warehouses.
Okay.
And, I've got a photo of the ballast and I describe everything. And I'm, luckily because I can cut and paste one to the other. And I'm talking, like, the first guy's like, hey, here you go. I'm like, no, that one's wrong. He's like, no, it's the same thing. I go, no, look, you have 3 wires at the end of yours. I need 8. You don't even have all the right colors. And he's like, well, colors don't matter. I'm like, I get it. I know the colors don't matter. It's the same wires. It's just, it's coated, it's easier.
Yeah, and there's not enough wires is the main part.
So, Joey, I think, was the more helpful guy. Joey, after a while, helped me, comes back and says, we literally don't have this, but let me talk to our source and see what they have to say. Can I email you back later? Like,
right.
Yeah, of course. So other guy is like, look, I have one that's going to work for you. It doesn't look the same. And here's the weird thing. Like, I don't know if you have an image of ballasts in your head.
I do.
Well, what color is it?
Has it been up someone's butt or not?
Let's say no.
It's like black?
Yes. The majority of ballasts are black.
Yeah.
Ours are white.
Weird.
Yeah. Ours are little tiny white boxes. It looks
Very
like
weird.
I can't tell you what it looks like. It looks like what is a Christmas stolen. It was a long way to get to a thing. No one's gonna know what it looks like. Sorry. So my point is, like, I was telling these guys, like, hey, these are white, just FYI. But the other guy's like, he's like, all right, I have one that's gonna work for you. It doesn't look the same and the colors are different, but it'll work. Absolutely, the first one he showed me. I'm like, guy, it doesn't have the right number of wires.
Yeah, this will not work.
And also, not to mention, his was longer and thinner. So one of the things that you would need is, because ballasts clip in and then get screwed in.
Okay.
Like, the clips aren't going to match.
Yeah, how is this thing supposed
But
to stay
also,
up there? Tape it?
you're missing wires.
Yeah.
There are not enough wires. Then he's like, I can't help you. Like, fine.
Yeah, clearly.
Fine, thank you.
Now we're in agreement again.
Hour later, other dude emails back. He's like, hey, I'm real sorry. Our source does not stock this, and he can't even recommend anybody.
Yeah.
So I felt a little bit more like, well, first of all, it sucks because we can't fix it. But it's
Yes.
like, I'm not that incompetent that it was staring me in the face and I can't fix it.
Right.
It is just out of the... Like, no one makes these
Yeah.
things anymore.
You want an obsolete supply.
And even when I found an obsolete supply, half of it didn't work.
Yeah.
Now...
Because you can't just buy new ones. You have to source them from somewhere. And God knows where people are sourcing something that doesn't get manufactured any longer.
Since then, because I posted about it, it was basically like, if anyone has any ballasts or a source, that's why Tony suggested that Hardware Store went to today, which, as far as we know, has 100 of these ballasts sitting inside.
Didn't look
we
like
just
they did.
couldn't get into the store.
Unless you use ballasts inside lawnmowers.
It was
I don't
3
think
o'clock.
they had one.
It's 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Their hours are from 10 to 5. Should be open.
I mean, you say that, but it looked very much like the sort of hardware store where it's like, did you call them and tell them that you needed something? Because they wouldn't be there otherwise.
I tried to call. All I got was a machine. So, can't do it. So, a couple of customers have recommended electricians that they've used. But basically, from this point, what we need to do is convert the lights to LEDs.
Yeah.
And
That's free to do, right?
again, well, it's free to do if I knew how to do it. Converting the lights to LEDs is easier than changing a ballast because you bypass the ballast.
Yeah.
You literally leave the ballast in there, just cut all the wires, and then connect them to each other, basically.
Sure.
But you need to know, but it all depends on how the ballast ran.
Right.
It's more complicated than that. But I have no idea.
That's the thing. Like, we would need basically an electrician to look at it and go, here's what you do.
Yeah.
And then also be okay not being paid to do that.
Right. So, but the bigger...
Here's how you don't need me. Well,
The bigger point of this is that we cannot afford to fix all 35 4-foot light fixtures that are in Challengers, Sidekicks, and both back rooms.
right.
We can't afford to do this now. So it may be a case of a slow rollout of like, hey, can you come out and do like this bank this month?
Right.
And this bank. But I mean, who wants to do that?
If it's a local electrician, like, maybe they'd be okay with that because it's just like, they don't mind doing a couple days.
So we could always reach out to Michael Kelly again.
Okay.
We can. There's Adam Rabowchek recommended somebody, and he's like, and this guy's friends with Guido from Lago. So
Okay.
that's a
good.
That's a vote of confidence. But I just haven't pulled the trigger on calling somebody because
You keep thinking you can solve it yourself.
I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to be like, hey, we can't afford to do this. And also, this took, like, this story that I just told about changing the wires, it took me, like, a solid hour to do that, to fail.
Right.
Now, multiply that by, 35 lights.
35 hours.
Yeah. So, I don't know. So, I'm not convinced of what we're going to do.
Right.
But all this has been going on without you knowing about it. I don't mean like I'm hiding it from you.
Yeah, I mean,
but you don't know the effort that was been put into all of this so far.
I'm vaguely aware of the process that's going on.
Yeah. And I specifically didn't tell you about it when it started happening because I'm like, I'm going to save this for the podcast because if I tell you and then retell it on the podcast, it's going to bore both of us.
It would not be the most exciting episode of Contest
Yes,
of
but at
Challengers.
least I could present this to you in a way that
Sure.
you don't know what's happening.
I don't, sure.
So that is why we went to that specifically shady hardware store on 47th Street today because
Smart.
it was recommended that they might have it. Because no other local hardware store is going to have these.
No, again, they don't make them anymore.
Yeah. And what I had is the clip-down version, so it doesn't have all the wires on it. But,
Okay,
I have photos of it on my phone, and I've saved it just in case.
sure.
And the two that I found on eBay were not the same brand, but the same kind, the right kind.
Mm-hmm.
So I am capable of finding them. They just don't exist anywhere else. And Andy, I'm not saying his last name to protect him. I'm not saying I can't remember how to pronounce it.
Sure.
If you ask in the store, I will happily tell you who this local Bucktown area piece of shit electrician is.
Mm-hmm. Who to avoid.
I did go to, I spent some time Saturday going to every Facebook post that recommended him and saying, don't use him, and here's a link to his Better Business Bureau account.
Smart.
I went so far as almost to join a Franklin Park Facebook group because he was recommended in there. And you got to fill out a quiz like, hey, what's the street that goes to the middle of Franklin Park? And my answer for each one was, I don't want to join this group. I just want to make sure that nobody
just want to warn people.
Recommends Andy Barentinos. And I saw that they had done that in this group. I just want to protect people from him. Then I thought, no, that's stupid. I'm not going to join a Facebook group.
Yeah.
But I did post it on a lot of places. And surprisingly, for it being the internet, it wasn't like the first couple were, you should never prepay, or, open a case in small claim court. I'm not asking for that.
Right.
But the majority of people were either, hey, he burned me too, or, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. I thought he was a good guy.
Sure.
Like, I'll take those as valid
responses.
Yeah,
sure. They're not just trying to solve a problem that already is
over. Yeah, that they're not solving. That's why you never pay up front.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you, guy. And I had to keep posting. The only reason I hired him was because of how highly recommended he came from this very page. So everybody else here, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the people that he's burned.
Yeah.
Well, look at that. I had 2 topics, and we've covered both of them.
We did it!
In
Thanks
great
for listening.
detail. Do you want to give me your book with your notes?
I don't have a book or any notes.
Oh. Huh. That's unfortunate for people listening.
No, I think they're okay.
Are they?
Yeah.
Any topics now? You get away with putting so little effort into the planning of this.
Do. I think I mentioned on a number of occasions that it's okay to skip a week. I am always the voice of nah, we're good.
It's always a little disheartening when we are working and really, there's a book. You and I talk about books coming out here in the podcast, right?
Frequently.
Now, how many of our subscribers listen to this podcast? How many people take advantage of it? Some, not a lot. Mm-hmm. But let's take a book like Ribbon Queen. How long have I been raving about that book?
5 weeks.
A while, right?
Yes.
The majority of the copies we sold had to be hand-sold.
Always.
Wednesday. But now we're out of the A cover. Mm-hmm. We still have a bunch of the B cover, though.
Yes.
Which is a less good cover.
It is a less good cover.
But we also sold the incentive cover as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're almost out of it, but I don't want to be almost out of a book that has 6 issues.
7 more issues.
It's an
8-issue series.
And so it's got legs. I want to have, and I want to put number 1 at the front. And I'm really, really glad people are taking my recommendation, but I wish they would take it earlier.
Yeah, you frequently will have reviews on the podcast or other places before FOC. So it's specifically so we can get subscriber orders before we're ordering the book, A, to make sure that they're covered, and B, to make sure that we're ordering enough for the shelf based on how much interest there is for subscribers. The thing about getting people to subscribe to stuff at stores is not just a basic pre-order system, again, to make sure people are covered. It tells us that there's interest in a book. If 2 people sign up in advance for Ribbon Queen, we order 5 or 6 copies for the shelf. Assuming we're not interested in the book and we don't have, a horse in the race, we'll just say, okay, well, people don't really care a whole lot. We'll get a few extra copies of the first issue, see how it goes.
But also, way less of issue 2, way less of issue 3.
Right. But if we get 8 or 9 people signing up for issue 1 of a series like that, then we're going to be wow, people really care about this. Let's get 15 or 20 for the shelf because clearly there's interest.
And I'm not saying that people have to jump on every book we talk about, but...
No, but it's an overall thing. This isn't just one single book.
My pitch to people in the store is no different to what I was saying on the podcast because at that point, I already read the first issue and now I've read issue 2. So I'm saying the same things, but I'm just saying it to more people, I guess.
I think it's just a human behavior thing. Like, if someone's saying, hey, a book that you're going to read in a month, I think is really good and you should sign up for it, is a thing where it's like, maybe I'm motivated to do that, maybe I'm not. If I'm there in the store and you're like, that book over there on the shelf is great and you should
I'll put
get
it in your hand.
Like, then
Yeah.
it's like, well, yeah, I'll buy it. Like, I heard you do that to somebody where you're like, hey, if you're getting World Tree, you should also check out Ribbon Queen. And they did. Like, would they have pre-ordered it if you said it last month for World Tree where you're like, hey, Ribbon Queen's coming out? They'd probably be like, I'll take a look when it comes out.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. That's
Yeah,
why I never want to be a store that's just like, well, we only order based on pre-orders. Like, there has to be stuff that in our gut we're like, no, this is good and people are going to find this. This is an audience that we can build or whatever.
Says the guy who wants to cut 2/3 of our single comics.
Yeah. In a given week, how many number ones do you think you're like, that's great, we should get a ton of that?
Like, so the other example this week would be Superman, the
Last Days of
Lex
Lex
Luthor, which
Yes.
we're out of now.
Yeah.
And that was a book that we both raved about ahead of time. Not
Did
just
not
me.
have a lot of pre-orders.
No. And now we're out of it
Yeah. And we'll try and get more, but, you know,
because we hand sold it to
now we're not
to
going
a
to
lot
have
of
it
people.
for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
And I'm not blaming people. I'm just saying that the system...
No, again, human behavior.
The system sucks.
It's not great. And this is...
And for every book that we love...
Well, this is the thing. Like, when you boil it down to the core solution to this problem, it's not push the books better or get more information out to readers. It's returnability. Because, again, the main place that readers find new books is when they're on the shelves in a store.
Yeah, we would have ordered
Unifying
so many
communications
more
across all channels doesn't mean shit to anyone
Ribbon Queens
because they're not paying attention
and
to those
Last Days of Lex
communications.
Luthor, were they returnable?
Yeah. If I think AWA honestly does have returnability, may or may not. I don't remember.
AWA gives us like...
It's like a lower net cost?
yeah.
Yeah. So again, that's the thing. Like, if you make it returnable, I'm going to up my numbers. If you don't make it returnable, I have to order conservatively because what if I can't push this book? Or what if it comes out in a week where people are doing other stuff? Or any number of variables. But if you make it returnable, my window to push that book grows by several weeks.
Vault gives us returnability, and that makes us... It used to make us order a lot of number ones,
Aftershock was the same way.
but now
When Aftershock had number ones.
Vault, their books just don't move, so their returnability means we're ordering 5 copies rather than 0 copies.
But again, I mean, that's still a higher number.
Right.
It's not a gigantic number because we're not just going to order a truckload of everything that's returnable. We can't afford that much up front.
Yeah.
And I don't think any publisher wants us to be ordering hundreds of copies of things that we can't sell.
But remember when DC would give us returnability on the first 3 issues of almost everything?
The first 2,
and then they
it was
just
great.
turned it off
Oh my God. Like,
overnight?
Yeah, and that absolutely cost the money on at least one book this week. And again, like I've said it before, Night Terrors. If Night Terrors had been returnable, I wasn't excited about it, but I probably would have been like, well, we're not going to get stuck with it, so what do I care? I'll order more aggressively.
Yeah.
And that would have been great because we had people that were interested. We'd probably still be selling that first week's worth of stuff. I'm not going to reorder it because...
to Terrors on the podcast repeatedly,
That was a
and now
joke for
you've
one
never
episode.
done that again.
It was a joke for one episode. Don't beat it into the ground.
Where's the consistency?
I don't want to force a bit.
Who does Short Pants Press locally?
Oh, Beaks. Sarah Beacon.
There's so many people whose names you deliberately pronounce the way you want to.
I do.
Yet that was a joke for one episode. Don't beat it into the ground.
It's got to be organic, Patrick. Yeah, again,
There's like 5 other people I could do that with.
That's true. Again, returnability. Like, I'll harp on it forever because it is the tool that makes a lot of the things in the direct market now more viable. And all these launches, like, if you can make it returnable, if you can offer that as an option for retailers, then it becomes something that we can stock a lot more of on initial release. We can have it to point to on a shelf and go, hey, grab a copy of that because it's great.
And I just want to say to the listener that If you're tired of hearing us talk about this, which we talk about it like every week, imagine how tired we are of having to be confronted with the lack of it.
To have DC
regularly.
Comics tell a bunch of retailers who are telling them, please make this returnable, returnability doesn't move the needle. Like, you have no idea how much it's moved the needle. You think it isn't moving the needle because the numbers aren't where you want them to be. They would be so much lower if it weren't returnable.
That is literally the metric with which I justify everything. Like, every new sales initiative we have, or every new facet to the website, or whatever, it's like, oh, well, did this up sales? No, but maybe sales would have been a lot worse without doing this, and this is what's saving it. We don't know.
Exactly. I mean, it's hard to because it's not widgets. Like, if you're looking at I'm going to pick a book at random, and I don't want it to be mean. I'm just picking one that came out recently. If you look at Hawkgirl #1, and you go, well, the numbers were this, they were X. You don't know what they would have been with returnability because you can't release it with returnability 2 months from now to find out.
Yeah, as the person
all
that
different
did
books.
the initial orders for Hawkgirl #1, I would have gone much higher.
Sure.
Not like double or anything, but
Higher.
I
ordered a bunch of Cyborg #1, which didn't really perform for us, but I ordered the first... We still have copies of issue 1 because it was returnable, and it hasn't needed to be returned yet.
Yeah.
So while that book didn't do great, at least we had it to sell to people, and we had the option of putting it in front of people. You take that away, and a lot of those lower-tier books that don't have a huge built-in audience, that aren't Batman, that aren't, written by high-level creators or drawn by superstar artists, that's the stuff that stores are easily going to say subs +2 or whatever, where it's just 2 extra copies for the shelf. Why risk it? You don't think there's an audience. It's nothing you're personally excited about. You can't hand sell it. So you're just going to shift your interest and your energy over to something else. Maybe DC, maybe somebody else entirely. But yeah, all of the promotion in the world for these books doesn't mean anything if the stores don't have them on the shelves. And the stores won't have them on the shelves if it's not returnable, because non-returnable means you are stuck with it if this one-shot or 2-issue miniseries doesn't perform. Because there's no back-issue market, because all of these things are short-run, and on and on and on. I could telescope this out as far as people want.
Another issue that seems similar in my head is... It was, almost a year ago we started doing our Tuesday night videos.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was August. I want to say it was August of last year.
Okay.
And we're also coming up on the 14th anniversary of this podcast.
Jesus.
And the 650th episode.
Yay.
However, Talk is Jericho just hit episode 1000, and he started way late, way after us, because he does 2 a week.
Sure, and did he do more during the pandemic?
I don't know, but like JVO lapped, he didn't lap us, but Car Con Carne is deep in the 800s.
Wow. Because he was doing them daily?
Yeah, during the pandemic, at least every weekday. But anyway...
Contest of Challengers will not be moving to a daily podcast drop.
No. And also, James
but
has
Writer
a video.
Alerts, my Common Writer podcast, will be doing hourly drops starting soon.
I believe that.
You can't use that, by the way. Writer Alerts, you can't use that.
I don't want to use it because it's yours. You're already doing it. If you want to do a
I don't.
Writer Alert episode, one episode, you want to record a Writer episode, we will plug it in and put it on this channel.
I really don't.
It won't count toward the Contest of Challengers
My
numbering.
rule for podcasts is I will gladly be on them. I'm not recording them or posting them.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm. Served me well for 14 years.
So the reason we did our first video was the book Luna. We had that Moon Knight book, Luna, remember?
Oh, right, yeah.
That no one knew what it was, and we thought
Correct.
it was super cool. So I wanted to do a video call-out to it to be like, here's a thing you've never heard of that we have. You can see it before you come into the store. Mm-hmm. And it did, Luna sold out immediately because of that.
Yes.
And we went back and, reordered it and then bought it at a... Anyway... So that worked for that.
Right.
So then it became, hey, this is a good way to let people know what's going to be on the shelves when they come in.
I always thought it was an All-Star Comics thing.
What?
The videos, I thought that was a thing they did, and you were like,
No,
this
it
is
was
fun.
100% because of Luna.
Okay.
They do fun videos of their own, but they're not the same thing.
No? Okay. I don't want
They
to.
mainly highlight
I don't watch ours.
their shelves full of variant covers,
Oh, okay.
which is a thing we don't really do.
No.
Unless Molly's is selecting a book.
Sure.
Or you're talking about Iron Man for the week.
Yes. I wanted the one with Emma Frost on the cover to go,
So the problem is now, it sometimes feels disingenuous because we do these videos every week. You, me, and Molly each do our own.
yes.
Some weeks, there's just not the excitement level of the books that are out. This week, not a problem because Click Click Boom was out.
Right.
And World Tree was out. And Ribbon Queen. And,
I think, so here's the thing, and you'll tell me your view on this.
okay.
Molly's view tends to be very, there's things I want people to know about, and I think we should talk about every single first issue, regardless of how I personally feel about it, because that's good business.
That seems accurate.
My view is I only want to talk about the stuff I'm legitimately excited about, because otherwise that's just PR buzz. You can get that anywhere. I want it to be something, for me, where it's, if I'm saying it, I want there to be some authenticity to it. Like, I don't mind pointing out, like, yeah, other stuff came out, but, like, if I'm going to sit there and talk about a book in my hands, I want it to be something where I'm genuinely excited to read this, or I did read this, and it's actually good, and you should check it out.
I'm somewhere in the middle because I want it to be books that I'm excited for, but I want it to also be, here's a book that's out you may not know about.
Sure.
I may not care about that book,
I'm less
But-
likely to do that, because
but
I
it's,
just...
at a certain point, I think it's important because, and this has been happening to me a lot more in our store, on the regular shelves of single issue comics, and even the new release section. When I get down to the shelves to pick out what I'm going to talk about, I miss things because everything just blurs together.
Sure.
Like, I literally forgot Click Click Boom, which I love. I forgot to talk about it, which is why I had to co-opt some of your video time this time.
And I didn't get to talk about it at all, which sucked.
Right.
So mad.
I just took that away from you.
Damn it.
I have that power. That I don't, and like last week, there was a book I forgot that I wanted to talk about, and I just, because
Weren't you reading Ultimate Invasion #2 today, and you thought it was a book that's coming out next week?
I did, yeah. Yeah. That's exactly
Which,
true.
I mean, honestly, I've done that before. There's been a couple of times where I'm taking subscribers' books out of their box, but because we get them in so far in advance sometimes, and I've already read a bunch, it's hard for me to remember, like, wait,
what can't you sell to this person today?
What is street dated later than today that I can't sell them yet versus what actually already came out and is okay for me to sell? So sometimes I do have to, like, look at the board or look at the counter to be like, wait, is this week or is this next week?
Well, even more than that, earlier today I was doing the breakdown of the Marvel books for not next week, the week after. So that's going to be in my head.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't remember when anything comes out. Plus, getting us the Marvel books sometimes over a week in advance, and me reading them over a week in advance. Sure, that book came out already. I read it.
Sure. I mean, you haven't, like, spoiled anything, and you're not the kind of person who's going to, like, post stuff on social media
Definitely not.
in advance of a book coming out, other than, like, hype. You're not going to be like, oh, man, I can't believe that happened in Amazing Spider-Man or whatever.
But often there's a book, like a #1 that comes out that we've got a decent number of copies for the shelf, that it's a thing I'm not interested in, so I didn't read it, but I still want to call it out for people and let them know that it's there, but I have a hard time doing that because I don't know what this book is about.
I usually won't do that unless it's something we have sizable quantities of, in which case we have sizable quantities because we're excited about it. If it's something where it's like token copies of a #1, if I'm not excited about it, it's just like, I don't know, people will find it on the shelf. Like me
See,
saying,
that's
like, we've got it.
opposite of my belief. Like, people want, even though we have the new first issue signage right in front of it, I think that without putting it in somebody's head ahead of time, they may not realize that it's a thing that's there.
Okay.
And there are literally books that we get, I'm like, oh, well, so-and-so's going to buy this book, and they don't. And I'm like, did they see it and choose no, or did they just not notice it?
Right.
Because it's so easy to not notice.
A lot of stuff comes out every single week.
We say that. It's also very hard to make spaces because it's either too much stuff or too little stuff.
I was thinking recently that when we first did Into This Week section, we did it in a section less than half the size we have now.
Yeah.
And I legitimately cannot imagine how we would even fit the comics for the week out of that section, not even counting all the graphic novels, merchandise, everything else. Like, just the idea of it, which I think
Well,
back
every
then...
DC book didn't have 5 covers.
Also, back then, we had a New This Week section just for graphic novels and merchandise that was all the way at the front, where like the card games and stuff are now.
Yeah.
So that's how we got away with it. Remembering that now. But even just the comics, like, we couldn't do it in... it's like 6 shelves, 12 shelves, something like that? 10 or 12 shelves? No. Oh my God. Not on nearly any week of the year.
Well, we have 16 feet now with 6 shelves
Yes.
per
So that
4-foot
is,
section.
90,
6 by 4.
96 linear feet.
Okay. And before that, it was. It
Like
was
80? No, less. 96, I get that right?
10 feet? 10 feet versus 16 feet.
Yeah.
It's 2.5, right? It's 2.5. I measure everything in 4-foot sections.
Sure, I get you.
So was it 2.5? I think it was 2.5.
It was like 40 feet, maybe.
Okay.
If that. And now we have like 96. It's still... This Wednesday, when we opened, it was so full. The sections were so full. And luckily, by the end of the night, we'd sold enough. Because this is the problem where, like, we'll do a thing where every variant cover should get a spot. You want a full face every book that comes out. But then by the end of the night, it's like, well, we sold 4/5 of our Hellfire Gala variants. So that's 4 extra spaces that we can move along. And same thing for, a single copy of an incentive variant that someone picked up.
Right.
So by Wednesday night, you're able to spread stuff out a lot more, although the flip side for other weeks is not enough stuff came out, and then by Wednesday night, it's like, this all looks terrible.
The shelves look awful.
You're giving single copies of books single spots.
Yeah.
So you're giving 5 copies that you have of a Batman spinoff,
by
5 spots.
Sunday and Monday, the shelves, it's like, just give up.
I honestly do. Like, by Monday, once we've taken the backer cards away to start moving everything Tuesday into the regular comic wall, by Monday night on the New This Week section, it's just like, there's empty spaces. There's just going to be empty spaces.
It's still not blows my mind, but the number of times people are like, oh, are you out of the new issue of Batman? What? No, we have a ton. Oh, you didn't. It's in the new release section at the very end of the store.
And luckily, that's the thing where I think you come in one time and that happens, and then it never happens again.
Right.
So anytime someone asks that, it's like, oh, you've never been here before.
That's why I was like, did you want a receipt? Push the button on the tab yourself.
I do that now too. I stole that from you.
Nice. You know how often it's like, it's blank? Turned itself off again.
I think I've only had that happen one time where someone had said that, and I'm like, oh, God,
It's
sorry.
Basically, every Saturday afternoon it shuts down.
I'm glad I don't have to worry about that then.
Yeah, good work for you. I would like to personally thank Ryan Brown for coming into Challengers this past Wednesday to
Thanks, Ryan.
sign all of our 8 Billion Genies hardcovers
Deluxe edition hardcover volume
with
1.
the fancy Challengers dust jacket.
Challenger's exclusive dust jacket.
Ryan virtually got off the plane from San Diego and came right to the store. I didn't think he needed a motorcade and a limousine, but, he's a big deal in San Diego now.
Yeah, I mean, especially because he came by helicopter and they dropped him off on the roof.
Yeah.
That just feels weird.
Yeah, because we don't have roof access. I don't even know how he got down.
I didn't ask.
He didn't tell me.
His security guards would not let me get close enough to ask.
Dal and I were having a talk this week about changing our signing schedule times because
We've moved it around a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Traditionally,
Yeah.
like when we first started doing it was like 5 to 7 on Wednesdays.
Yeah,
Peak rush.
sure. But now that's not peak rush. That's let's all take a nap time.
Yeah, 6 to 7 is, why are we still here?
But anyway, there was a pretty heavy rainstorm first thing Wednesday, and Ryan had messaged us ahead of time to be like, "Are we still doing this?" We're like, "Yeah, I think it's people still come in." It's
he
too
wanted
late.
to know if we
It's
should
gonna break.
reschedule it for later in the day, but by that point it was like literally an hour before the signing was going to start, and it's like we cannot get the word out to enough people. And sure enough, there was someone lined up like before we opened because they came for Ryan.
The funny part was this was a much busier than normal Wednesday morning, which we expected. Not for Ryan.
Yeah, it's people. I think honestly, and I think we've said this before, take Ryan for granted as far as how often he appears at Challengers.
Yeah.
But the good thing was Ryan was kind enough to sign and sketch in all the hardcover copies we had of 8 Billion Genies. So anyone who wasn't able to make it in, for whatever reason, even if you live far away, they're all on the website now. It's a front page item on our website. You can get it shipped out. It's fine.
The funniest part was having just been in San Diego last weekend and signing and sketching all weekend.
And moving hundreds of copies of that hardcover.
They had their own Image had their own exclusive cover for it. Ryan's like, I was kind of worried because the last thing I wanted was to have to deal with giant lines of people again.
Good news.
And he got that break.
Good news, Ryan.
Challengers took care of him.
We have plenty of time to talk about Handlebar.
Yeah. So, like Dal said, they're on the website. We sold a bunch in the first day or so. That's pretty great. So, I mean, I
think it's a great value. I mean, for $46.99, you get not only the entire 8 issues of 8 Billion Genies, you get, I think, every variant cover. You get, it's in hardcover. It's oversized. It's got an exclusive Challengers dust jacket. It's signed by Ryan. It's got a sketch by Ryan.
The Van Tour cover in there?
I didn't look through the whole thing.
Because that's like a Challenger shared exclusive.
That'd be in curse words, wouldn't it?
No, they did an 8 Billion Genies.
Oh, that's right.
Van Tour
Yeah.
cover.
The Vaniversary variant.
Yeah.
Yes. And then...
You made me doubt myself for a second. I'm like...
Well, you said Van
no.
Tour. It's the Vaniversary.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
okay. The Vaniversary of the Van Tour.
Yes. There's also...
It's just the van on the cover.
While supplies last, we still have copies that include the book plate. Not guaranteed if you're ordering it online.
Yeah, from what we have now, you're guaranteed a Challenger's dust jacket and a sketch of a genie inside by Ryan. Mm-hmm. There's only a limited number of those and an even more limited number of the signed book plates, which is, I think, a weird thing to give out to people because you're already getting the book signed by Ryan and now you're getting a sticker signed by Charles and Ryan.
Yeah.
So if you don't want the signed book plate because you're already getting the signed book, we'll take the book plate back and give it to somebody else.
Sure.
Because we have...
That's what I did.
we have copies of the book that don't have book plates because there's not as many book plates as we got books. Mm-hmm. And once we saw the dust jacket, we'll just be restocking with the regular cover, which is fine.
Yeah, I think
it's passable.
Yeah, that's good too. Not as good, but good.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, and gets the point across. No, thanks a lot, Ryan. We appreciate it, and especially since you were out of town signing for so many people right before this, and we were worried that wasn't going to happen at all because we had to commit to that dust jacket a while ago.
That's true.
Weird thing about the dust jacket, and I showed it to Ryan as well, but I'm the one who folded all the dust jackets and put them on the books.
Thanks.
They came with a not pre-perforated, pre-folded. Mm-hmm. There was a crease built into the printing of all of them just for the back flap.
Interesting.
But when you fold it on that flap and put it in and then put it around, it doesn't quite match up. If you want to, that one is one of the best ones that I did right there, which is why you took it.
I did. It's
but
exactly
if you look at the back cover of the actual book of 8 Billion Genies, the special hardcover, which I can't reach. Look at this line.
I see it.
Yeah, but this is the perforation.
Yeah.
It's folded right on the perforation.
Well, not the perforation.
And tucked in.
Crease.
I'm sorry, the crease. I keep saying perforation. Also, you see how these curl already?
I'll keep it closed for a little
That's
while.
what you do. Yeah. So anyway, this weird line is on all of them.
I saw.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to put this back. I'll just leave it against here for now. Okay.
Perfect. Good work.
Good. I may be changing my mind about that decision I made.
Sure.
Yeah. So there you have it. Another episode done. Special guest appearance by Gina Challenger.
Thanks, Gina.
Special guest in-store appearance by Ryan Brown. We've got plenty of events lined up. We have Rock and Roll Saturday on Saturday, August 12th with Mike Norton for Rock Gods of Jackson, Tennessee, with Dan Doherty and John Westhoff for Drumsticks of Doom, with Steve Bryant and Donald Cardenas for Evie and the Helsings. There may even be the colorist for Evie and the Helsings there.
Cool.
All of those creators are going to be signing their rock and roll themed comics and or graphic novels on Rock and Roll Saturday. And then the following Saturday, on August 19th, we have a double YA signing with Emily Riesback and The Pirate and the Porcelain Girl and Austin Paramore from Malcolm Kidd and the Perfect Song. Both of those books will be on hand, being signed by both those creators. It is a Saturday afternoon from noon until 2, so it's in all ages. Bring the whole family. These books are YA appropriate. The last Wednesday of the month, we have Tyrell Cannon in for the brand new Ryan Stegman written image comic, The Schlub. Tyrell does the art for it. And we have more things lined up. We've got, on the horizon, we have Steph Meided's new book, Club Kickout, with hopefully some fun additions to that. And we have, I'm sure, more stuff.
Probably more
Let's
stuff.
not get too far ahead of ourselves.
August is very busy.
Signings are back with a vengeance. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.